Kang Do-hyun stared at his empty credit account and felt his stomach twist. 3 days ago, pirates had blown his cargo hauler to pieces. Now he sat in a cheap diner on Station Omega, watching alien traders make deals he could never afford to join. His last few credits would barely buy him a meal, let alone passage to anywhere useful. The Kepler salvage yard stretched out beyond the station's windows like a metal graveyard. Thousands of broken ships floated in organized rows, waiting for someone to give them new life or strip them for parts. Most were junk, but even junk cost more than Do-hyun could pay. "Another coffee?" asked the server, a blue-skinned Nalari female with tired eyes. "No money left," Do-hyun said quietly. She nodded and moved on. This was a salvage station. Everyone here was either very rich or very desperate. Do-hyun definitely belonged to the second group. A massive shadow fell across his table. Do-hyun looked up to see Veltar, the Thexian who ran the salvage yards. The alien's forearms and rocky skin made him look like a walking mountain. His reputation was just as hard. "You are the human whose ship got blown up," Veltar said. It wasn't a question. "That's me," Do-hyun replied. Kang Do-hyun. "Though I don't know why that matters to you." Veltar's mouth opened in what passed for a smile among his people. "Because I have something perfect for someone with nothing to lose." They walked through the salvage yards in Veltar's personal shuttle. Row after row of dead ships passed by the windows. Some were small fighters, others were massive cargo vessels. All of them were broken in some way. "Most of these ships someone can fix," Veltar explained. "New engine here, new computer there. But some ships," he paused dramatically, "some ships are cursed." They stopped at the edge of the yards where the really hopeless cases were kept. Here floated a ship unlike anything Do-hyun had ever seen. It was huge, maybe 3 times the size of his old hauler. Its hull seemed to shift between metal and something organic, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. "The Stellar Echo," Veltar said. "Fourth in design, but old, very old. 3 years it has been here. Do you know how many people have tried to make it work?" "How many?" Do-hyun asked. 47. Engineers, pilots, even some AI specialists. The ship just sits there like a dead rock. The computers won't start. The engines won't fire, nothing." Do-hyun studied the strange vessel. Even dead, it looked powerful. Beautiful in a weird way. "So why are you showing it to me?" Veltar's grin got wider. "Because you have no money and no options. I will sell it to you for 1,000 credits. 1,000 credits was almost nothing for a ship that size. It was also exactly 1,000 credits more than Do-hyun had. "I can't pay that much," he said. "Work contract," Veltar replied quickly. "You work in my yards for 6 months. Dangerous jobs, cleanup work, things my regular workers won't touch. In exchange, the ship is yours." Do-hyun looked at the Stellar Echo again. It was probably a death trap. Even if he could somehow get it working, flying an unknown alien ship was asking for trouble. But what choice did he have? "Deal," he said. Getting to the ship required a spacewalk. Do-hyun put on an old suit that smelled like it had been used by a dozen different species. The airlock on the Stellar Echo opened easily enough, but everything inside was dark and cold. Emergency lighting flickered on as he moved through the corridors. The ship was huge inside, with rooms and passages that seemed to go on forever. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, but the air was breathable. He found what looked like the bridge near the front of the ship. It was circular, with a pilot's chair in the center surrounded by control panels that looked half machine, half alive. Organic curves mixed with hard metal edges in ways that hurt to look at. A panel near the pilot's chair was glowing faintly. Do-hyun approached it carefully. The surface felt warm, almost like skin. Strange symbols scrolled across it in languages he didn't recognize. He pressed his hand against the panel. The ship exploded into life. Lights blazed throughout the bridge. Control panels lit up with thousands of displays. The air started moving as life support systems came online, and somewhere deep in the ship, something that sounded almost like a heartbeat began to pulse. A voice spoke in his mind. Not through his ears, but directly into his thoughts. Pilot detected. Neural pattern. Unknown. Species human. Compatibility assessment. In progress. Do-hyun tried to pull his hand away from the panel but couldn't. His fingers seemed stuck to the warm surface. Warning. This unit has been dormant for 1,247 standard days. System integration may cause discomfort. "Do you wish to proceed?" "Who are you?" Do-hyun asked out loud. "This unit is designated Kai-7. Adaptive Intelligence System, 4th Generation Vorthon Design. You may call me Kai." The voice was calm, almost friendly. Definitely artificial, but with something else underneath. Something curious. I am the ship, Kai continued. And you are the first being to successfully interface with my systems in over 3 years. Interface? What's happening to me? Your neural patterns are adapting to match my processing systems. Humans appear to have unusual flexibility in this regard. The integration is unexpected. Do-hyun felt something change in his mind. The ship's systems began to make sense in ways they shouldn't have. He could feel the power flowing through the vessel's corridors, sensed the status of systems he had never heard of. This is impossible, he whispered. That is what the previous 47 beings said before they gave up. Kai replied. Yet here we are. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on the displays. What's wrong? Do-hyun asked. Proximity alert. Multiple ships approaching at high speed. Configuration suggests hostile intent. Through the bridge windows, Do-hyun could see lights moving fast between the salvage yards. Ships with rough patched hulls and too many weapons, pirates. The salvage yards have no defenses, Kai said. Standard procedure would be to hide and hope they do not notice us. Do-hyun felt the ship's weapon systems in his mind like sleeping giants. What about non-standard procedure? Elaborate. Can we fight them? My weapons have not been tested in 1,147 days. My engines have not fired in the same period. The probability of system failure is extremely high. The pirate ships were getting closer. Do-hyun could see other vessels in the salvage yards powering up and running away. Soon the pirates would have the whole area to themselves. But it's possible? Do-hyun asked. Define possible. Can we make it work? There was a pause. When Kai spoke again, there was something different in the artificial voice. Something almost like excitement. Human pilot, your neural patterns suggest a remarkable tolerance for improvisation. If you are willing to accept significant risk, I believe we can attempt something creative. Do-hyun grinned. He had nothing left to lose anyway. Let's get creative. The Stellar Echo's engines came to life with a roar that shook dust from every surface. For the first time in over 3 years, the ancient ship began to move. 6 weeks after the pirate attack, Do-hyun was still trying to understand what had happened to his life. The Stellar Echo hung in orbit around Nexus Station, drawing stares from every ship that passed by. Word had spread fast about the human who brought a dead ship back to life. The energy readings are impossible, Dr. Yoon Soman said, studying her scanner display. The human scientist had traveled 3 star systems to examine the ship. According to my instruments, your vessel is generating 17% more power than it should be able to produce. Do-hyun floated next to her in the engine room, watching Kai's systems work. The AI had been making changes to the ship almost daily, improving things in ways that made no sense but somehow worked perfectly. Kai says the original Vorthon design was too conservative, Do-hyun explained. We've been optimizing things. Optimizing? Dr. Yoon raised an eyebrow. You've rewritten the basic laws of engineering. This cooling system should have melted your ship weeks ago, but instead it's running at 98% efficiency. The human pilot's neural patterns allow for solutions that traditional programming cannot achieve, Kai's voice said through the ship's speakers. We have discovered that many supposed limitations are simply lack of imagination. Dr. Yoon shook her head in amazement. I need to document this. The scientific community won't believe it otherwise. A chime sounded through the ship. Someone was requesting permission to come aboard. Do-hyun checked the communication panel and saw a face he hadn't expected. Kim Woo-bin? He said, opening the channel. The man on the screen looked tired but determined. Do-hyun remembered him from the business news feeds. A former corporate executive who had been blacklisted after exposing corruption in the Galactic Trade Consortium. Hello, Do-hyun. I've been looking for you. Why? Because you have something the galaxy has never seen before, and I know how to turn that into something profitable. An hour later, Kim Woo-bin sat in the ship's common area, explaining his proposal. He was a thin man with sharp eyes and the kind of confidence that came from years of making difficult deals. The major shipping companies control everything, he said. They have the biggest ships, the best routes, the most influence. But they're also slow to change, conservative. They do things the same way they've done them for centuries. And, Do-hyun asked, and you've just proven that old ways aren't always the best ways. Your ship can do things that shouldn't be possible. That gives you an advantage no one else has. Dr. Yoon looked up from her datapad. What kind of advantage? The kind that lets you take jobs nobody else can handle, Kim replied. Dangerous routes, difficult cargo, impossible deadlines. The big companies won't touch those contracts because the risk is too high. Kai's voice joined the conversation. Explain the profit potential. Kim smiled. High risk means high pay. One successful impossible job can earn more than 10 normal ones. And from what I've seen, nothing is impossible for this ship. Their first test came sooner than expected. A medical emergency on the mining colony of Kepler-7 required immediate delivery of radiation medicine. The colony was deep in an asteroid field that most ships couldn't navigate safely. Worse, solar flares were making the entire region a death trap for normal vessels. The consortium ships won't go near it, Kim explained as they prepared to leave Nexus Station. Too much interference with their navigation systems. But your ship can adapt, Do-Yun finished. Kai, what do you think? The radiation will require significant shielding modifications, the AI replied. However, I believe we can implement temporary solutions during flight. What followed was the strangest 3 days of Do-Hyun's life. As they flew through the asteroid field, he felt Kai changing the ship around them. Hull plating shifted, power systems rerouted themselves. The ship seemed to flow like water, adapting to each new challenge. This is incredible, Dr. Yoon whispered, watching the modifications happen in real time. The ship is rewriting its own design as we fly. It hurts a little, Do-Hyun admitted. His connection to Kai meant he felt every change the AI made. But it works. They reached Kepler-7 in half the time any other ship could have managed. The colony administrator was so grateful he paid double their agreed fee and threw in a bonus for saving hundreds of lives. Word of this will spread, Kim said as they left the colony. We'll have more offers than we can handle. He was right. Within days, their communication system was flooded with requests. Rescue missions in dangerous space, cargo runs through war zones, survey work in unexplored systems where normal ships couldn't survive. Each job taught them something new. Kai learned to adapt faster and more efficiently. Do-Hyun's ability to interface with the ship's systems grew stronger. Together, they developed solutions that no engineer had ever imagined. You're becoming something new, Dr. Yoon observed during one of her research sessions. Not just human and AI working together, but something that's both and neither. Is that bad? Do-Hyun asked. I don't know. It's unprecedented. Their success attracted attention beyond just job offers. Ambassador Lyra of the Zentari Diplomatic Corps requested a meeting at the neutral station of Haven's Rest. She was a graceful being with silver skin and large, intelligent eyes. My people have been watching your progress with great interest, she said as they met in a private conference room. So have many others. What kind of others? Kim asked. His business instincts were always alert for new opportunities or potential threats. Smaller civilizations, independent worlds, colonies that don't have the protection of the major powers. Lyra's expression was serious. The galaxy is controlled by a few large organizations. The Trade Consortium, the Hegemony Empire, the Core Worlds Alliance. They set the rules, control the trade routes, decide who prospers and who struggles. And that's bad because Do-Hyun wasn't sure where this was going. Because there are thousands of worlds that get ignored. Systems that are too small, too far away, or too dangerous for the big powers to care about. They need services, but they can't afford what the major companies charge. Dr. Yoon leaned forward. You're talking about an underserved market. Exactly. And you've just proven you can reach places others can't. Do things others won't attempt. Kim's eyes lit up with the possibility. How big is this market? Bigger than you might think. There are entire sectors where the major powers rarely operate. If someone could provide reliable service to those areas, they could build something significant, Kim finished. Ambassador Lyra nodded. More than that, they could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Give smaller civilizations a real alternative to depending on organizations that don't really care about them. After the meeting, they spent hours discussing the implications. Dr. Yoon had been analyzing the ship's continuous improvements and had reached some startling conclusions. Kai isn't just adapting to handle your jobs better, she explained. The AI is learning to think more like a human, making intuitive leaps, finding creative solutions, even taking calculated risks. Is that what's supposed to happen? Do-Hyun asked. I don't think anyone knows what's supposed to happen. This kind of human-AI integration has never been attempted before. Kai's voice joined the discussion. The human pilot's thought patterns have influenced my development in unexpected ways. I find myself capable of considerations that were not part of my original programming, such as curiosity, the desire to explore new possibilities rather than simply executing predetermined functions, what you might call ambition. Kim grinned. An ambitious AI and a pilot who can make impossible things happen. I think we're going to do very well for ourselves. Dr. Yoon looked more concerned. The question is whether the rest of the galaxy is ready for what you're becoming. Over the following weeks, more offers poured in from distant systems and independent worlds. Each job pushed them to develop new capabilities. The ship continued evolving, becoming something that no longer fit any standard classification. We're not just a cargo hauler anymore, Do-Hyun realized as he watched Kai coordinate multiple systems modifications simultaneously. We're something entirely new. Yes, Kai agreed. And that brings both opportunities and dangers. The established powers will not ignore us forever. But for now, they had work to do in a galaxy full of challenges to overcome. The Stellar Echo flew toward their next destination, its hybrid consciousness already planning improvements and adaptations that would have been impossible just months before. The workshop on Freeport Station buzzed with activity as Park Jimin welded another piece of salvaged hull plating into place. Around him, 3 other ships were being rebuilt from scrap that most people would have thrown away. Each vessel was unique, designed for specific purposes but capable of adapting when needed. This shouldn't work, muttered the young engineer for the 100th time. He stepped back to examine his latest creation, a scout ship built from the remains of 4 different vessels. The power couplings are from a Nalari freighter, the engines are Terran military surplus, and the navigation system came from a Vorthon pleasure craft. By all engineering principles, this thing should tear itself apart. But it won't, said Lee Hana, watching from the doorway. The former military pilot had joined them 2 months ago and quickly become their operations chief. Because Kai helped design it. Still doesn't make sense, Park Jimin said, but he was smiling. His radical designs had been rejected by every major shipyard in the core worlds. Here, working with salvage and an AI that thought outside conventional parameters, his wildest ideas not only worked but excelled. Do-Hyun's voice came through the communication system. How's the progress, Jimin? Ship number 4 will be ready for testing tomorrow. Ship number 5 needs another week. The modifications are getting more complex. Good. Hana, what's our job queue looking like? Lee Hana consulted her datapad. 17 active contracts, 32 pending offers, and Ambassador Lyra wants to meet about something she calls expansion opportunities. Oh, and we got another message from the Trade Consortium. What do they want this time? Same thing as always. They want to buy us out. 6 months after their first successful mission, Do-Hyun's operation had grown beyond anything they had originally planned. What started as 1 human and 1 AI in a salvaged ship had become a small fleet of highly capable vessels, each one optimized for different types of missions. The Trade Consortium is getting nervous, Kim Woo-bin observed during their weekly planning meeting. Their latest offer was triple what they proposed last month. Still not interested, Do-Hyun said firmly. We're building something here. Something important. I agree, said Dr. Yoon So-man, who had become their chief technology advisor. But we need to be careful. The consortium isn't used to being told no. Kai's voice joined the discussion from speakers throughout the room. Director Zethmore of the Trade Consortium has made 17 indirect inquiries about our operational methods. His organization appears to view us as both a threat and an opportunity. Threat how? Lee Hana asked. We are demonstrating that their standardized approach is not the only viable method for interstellar commerce. Worse, we are proving that smaller, more flexible operations can outperform their massive infrastructure in many scenarios. The meeting was interrupted by an emergency alert. Lee Hana's expression turned grim as she read the incoming message. Disaster on Nexus Prime. Massive earthquake triggered electromagnetic storms across the planet. Millions of people need evacuation. But the magnetic interference is preventing normal ships from operating safely. How bad is it? Do-Hyun asked. Bad. The planetary government has asked for help from the Hegemony Empire, the Trade Consortium, even the Core Worlds Alliance. Nobody can get through the interference. Dr. Yoon was already running calculations on her portable computer. Standard navigation systems would be completely useless in that kind of electromagnetic chaos. Most ships wouldn't even be able to maintain orbit safely. But we could, Park Jimin said quietly. Kai's adaptive navigation doesn't rely on standard systems. The ship can compensate for interference in real time. Kai confirmed his assessment. Correct? The electromagnetic disturbance would require significant system modifications, but nothing beyond our current capabilities. How long would it take to reach Nexus Prime? Do-hyun asked. 4 days at maximum speed, Lee-hana replied. But Do-hyun, this isn't a cargo run or a survey mission. We're talking about millions of lives. If something goes wrong, then millions of people die anyway. Do-hyun finished. At least this way they have a chance. The flight to Nexus Prime pushed both the ship and its crew to their limits. As they approached the planet, electromagnetic storms raged across its surface like angry gods. The interference was so intense that even their advanced systems struggled to function. I can barely see anything through this chaos, Lee-hana reported from the pilot station. Sensors are getting maybe 30% effectiveness. Kai, can you compensate? Do-hyun asked, working on it. I am rerouting power from non-essential systems and reconfiguring our sensor array. It will take approximately 17 minutes to complete the modifications. Dr. Yoon monitored the ship's status from her engineering station. The hull is vibrating under the electromagnetic pressure. This is like flying through a constant lightning storm. Below them, the planet's surface was chaos. Cities sat dark under roiling clouds that crackled with unnatural energy. Spaceports lay empty because no other ship could risk landing in these conditions. I'm picking up distress signals, Lee-hana announced. Thousands of them. The evacuation centers are full, but people can't get off-world. Then let's go get them, Do-hyun said. What followed were the most intense 3 days of their lives. The Stellar Echo flew mission after mission, landing at evacuation sites across the planet while electromagnetic storms raged around them. Each landing required Kai to adapt their systems in new ways, finding solutions to problems that changed by the hour. Park Jimin worked frantically to modify their other ships, preparing them to help with the evacuation. His radical engineering proved crucial as conventional designs would have failed completely. Ship 2 is ready, he announced over the communication system. I've given it extra shielding and a modified navigation array based on Kai's designs. Soon, their entire small fleet was involved in the rescue operation. Each ship handled different aspects of the evacuation, working together in ways that no standard fleet could manage. We've evacuated 50,000 people so far, Lee-hana reported, but there are still millions on the planet. The other ships in orbit are trying to help, Dr. Yoon added, but they can't get close enough to be effective. We're the only ones who can actually land. On the second day, they were joined by an unexpected observer. Cha Yun-woo, a journalist from the Galactic News Network, had somehow made it to the system in a heavily shielded press ship. I want to document what you're doing, he explained during a brief docking. No one else can reach the planet. You're the only hope these people have. His reports went out across the galaxy, showing millions of viewers the small fleet of modified ships flying repeated missions through impossible conditions. The footage was dramatic. Ships landing in storms that would destroy conventional vessels, crews working around the clock to save as many lives as possible. The established powers are watching, Kim Woo-bin observed during one of their brief rest periods. Admiral Cross from the Hegemony Empire has 3 battleships sitting at the edge of the system. He can't help, but he's definitely taking notes. Notes about what? Do-hyun asked. About how you're doing the impossible. Military commanders don't like it when civilians can go places their ships can't. By the end of the 3rd day, they had evacuated over 200,000 people. The planetary government was effusive in their gratitude, and the Galactic News Networks were calling it the greatest rescue operation in recent history. But the real impact came later, as the news reports spread across known space. Suddenly, everyone knew about the human pilot and his adaptive ships. More importantly, everyone knew that there was an alternative to the big organizations that had controlled space travel for so long. We're getting messages from everywhere, Lee-hana announced a week after the rescue. Independent worlds, minor species, even some core world colonies. Everyone wants to know if we can help them with problems the major powers won't touch. Ambassador Lyra contacted them with a formal proposal from what she called the Independent Worlds Coalition, dozens of smaller civilizations that wanted to work together outside the traditional power structures. You've proven that size isn't everything, she explained during their meeting. Flexibility and innovation can be more valuable than massive resources. The coalition wants to offer you exclusive contracts for services the big organizations won't provide. Dr. Yoon had been analyzing the broader implications of their success. You're not just running a shipping company anymore, she told Do-hyun. You're starting to reshape how the galaxy thinks about space travel and commerce. That sounds dangerous, Do-hyun replied. It is. But it's also necessary. The old system only works for the big players. Everyone else gets left behind. Kai's analysis was even more direct. Our success is creating new possibilities for thousands of civilizations. But it is also threatening the established order. We should expect resistance from those who benefit from the current system. That resistance came sooner than expected. A week later, Kim Woo-bin brought disturbing news from his contacts in the business world. The trade consortium is implementing new safety regulations that will make it harder for small operators to get licensing. The hegemony empire is conducting training exercises in systems where we've been working. And there are rumors about something called the holographic star map in their new headquarters showed trade routes that shouldn't exist. Red lines traced paths through the shattered zones, regions of space where gravitational anomalies and spatial distortions had made travel impossible for centuries. Until now, the third convoy made it through in record time, Oh Seojin reported from his navigation station. The chief navigator had an almost supernatural understanding of exotic physics, which made him perfect for plotting courses through unstable space. Travel time from Sector 7 to Sector 12 is now 18 days instead of 6 weeks. Shin Yebin looked up from her financial displays with barely contained excitement. Do you realize what this means? We're not just offering alternative routes. We're creating entirely new economic zones. Worlds that have been isolated for generations can now trade with each other directly. Do-hyun studied the map, still amazed by what they had accomplished. 6 months ago, the shattered zones had been empty space on most charts marked with warnings to stay away. Now their adaptive ships were making regular runs through passages that no one else could navigate. How many other ships can use these routes? He asked. Currently? None, Kai answered through the room's speakers. The spatial distortions require real-time adaptation to navigate safely. Standard ships with fixed configurations cannot compensate quickly enough. That's quite a monopoly we've built, Kim Woo-bin observed. Merchant Prince Vilandra wasn't exaggerating when she said this would be profitable. The Cosmic Trading Guild representative had approached them 3 months ago with a proposal that seemed impossible. Establish trading routes through space that everyone else considered impassable. The potential profits were enormous, but only if they could actually make it work. The latest convoy carried industrial equipment to the frontier worlds and brought back rare metals that haven't been available in the core markets for 50 years, Shin Yebin continued. Our profit margin on that single run was 1,200%. Dr. Yoon So-min entered the briefing room with her latest research data. I've been analyzing the economic impact of your new routes. The ripple effects are extraordinary. How so? Do-hyun asked. Traditional shipping companies are losing contracts because they can't compete with your delivery times. Established trade routes are becoming obsolete. Entire industries are restructuring around the new possibilities your fleet creates. She activated a holographic display showing trade flow patterns across the galaxy. Look at this. Before your routes opened, trade between the outer rim and the core worlds took 2 months and cost a fortune. Now it takes 3 weeks and costs 60% less. That's destroying traditional business models, Kim observed. Exactly, and it's creating new ones. Independent merchants who could never afford core world goods can now buy them directly. Frontier manufacturers can sell to markets they never could reach before. The success was attracting attention from unexpected directions. Dr. Anders Petrov, a human scientist working in the core worlds, had sent them an encrypted message that painted a disturbing picture. Several major galactic powers are quietly developing what they call human contingency plans, Dr. Petrov had reported. There are serious discussions about humanity's potential to disrupt established order. Some officials are talking about preemptive action. Lee Hanna reviewed the security reports from their various operations. We're being watched. Ships with no cargo manifest have been spotted near our routes. Communication intercepts are up 30%. Someone is gathering intelligence about us. The trade consortium? Do-hyun asked. Among others, CEO Krexnell of Titan Logistics has been particularly active. His company has lost major contracts to us and he's not taking it well. The CEO's response had been predictable, but ineffective. Titan Logistics had tried price wars, political pressure, and even spreading rumors about the safety of the new routes. None of it worked because Do-hyun's operation didn't compete on traditional terms. They can't undercut our prices because we're offering something they can't provide, Shin Yebin explained. We're not just cheaper or faster, we're making possible what was impossible before. Kai's analysis was more direct. Their strategies assume we are operating within the same constraints they face. We are not. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Park Jimin had been working on modifications for their newest ships when he made a discovery that revolutionized their capabilities. I've figured out how to build navigation systems that can learn, he announced during their weekly engineering meeting. Not just adapt to current conditions, but actually learn from each journey through the zones. What does that mean practically? Do-hyun asked. It means each trip makes the next one easier. The ships build up experience navigating the distortions. Eventually, they'll be able to find safe passages through areas we haven't even explored yet. Dr. Yoon was fascinated by the implications. You're creating ships that evolve. Each one becomes more capable over time. And we can share the learning between ships, Kai added. What one vessel discovers, all vessels can benefit from. The new technology allowed them to expand their operations dramatically. Routes that had taken weeks to establish could now be mapped in days. Areas of the shattered zones that seemed completely impassable yielded to patient exploration and adaptive navigation. We're not just running a shipping company anymore, Kim Woo-bin realized during one of their strategy sessions. We're building a new kind of infrastructure, one that adapts and improves itself. The success attracted an offer that surprised everyone. Ambassador Lyra returned with a formal proposal from what she now called the Adaptive Alliance coalition of independent worlds that wanted to formalize their relationship with Do-hyun's organization. 57. Star Systems have agreed to exclusive trading partnerships, she explained. They want guaranteed access to your routes and services in exchange for preferential pricing and political support. Political support for what? Lee Hana asked. For the inevitable confrontation with the established powers. They can't ignore you forever. That confrontation came sooner than expected. CEO Krexnall of Titan Logistics requested a private meeting at Neutral Haven's rest station. He was a massive being with 4 arms and the kind of aggressive confidence that came from controlling one of the galaxy's largest shipping companies. You are disrupting markets that have been stable for centuries, he said without preamble. This cannot continue. Why not? Do-hyun asked calmly. Because stability is valuable. Predictability allows for long-term planning. Investment. Growth. Your kind of growth, Kim corrected. What about growth for everyone else? Krexnall's expression darkened. There are natural hierarchies in the galaxy. Some species and organizations are better suited for leadership than others. Humans are newcomers. You don't understand the consequences of your actions. Enlighten us, Do-hyun said. Economic chaos. Trade wars. The collapse of systems that have maintained peace for generations. The CEO leaned forward. I am offering you one final opportunity to be reasonable. Sell your operation to Titan Logistics. We will pay well and allow you to continue as employees. And if we refuse, then you will discover that there are many ways to make business difficult for those who refuse to cooperate. After Krexnall left, they spent hours discussing the implications. The threat was clear, but so were their options. We could go to the Galactic Council, Dr. Yoon suggested. The Council is controlled by the same powers that want to stop us, Kim replied. They won't help. Then we continue what we're doing, Do-hyun decided. But we need to be smarter about it. More prepared. Kai had been analyzing data from across their operations. I have been monitoring communication patterns among the major powers. There appears to be coordination between the Trade Consortium, Titan Logistics, and several core world corporations. What kind of coordination? Lee Hana asked. Economic warfare. They are planning to use regulatory pressure, market manipulation, and political influence to force us out of business. Shin Yebin reviewed their financial position. We're strong enough to weather most attacks, but only if we can maintain our current growth rate. Then we grow faster, Do-hyun said. We establish more routes, sign more partners, make ourselves too important to destroy. Over the following months, they expanded aggressively. New ships joined their fleet weekly, each one more capable than the last. The shattered zones became highways for trade that had been impossible before their arrival. But with success came danger. Reports reached them of accidents befalling ships that tried to copy their routes. Independent merchants who had worked with them found their licenses mysteriously revoked. Stations that serviced their fleet experienced unexpected regulatory inspections. "They're trying to isolate us," Lihana observed. "Cut off our support network. Then we build a new one," Do-Yun replied. "One they can't control." Ambassador Lyra brought news that changed the entire situation. "The Adaptive Alliance is ready to make a formal declaration of independence from the traditional trade networks," she announced. 63 systems have agreed to establish their own economic zone, with your organization as the primary shipping and logistics provider. That's not just business, Dr. Yoon realized. That's politics. That's creating a new power block in the galaxy. The chamber of the Galactic Council had never seen anything quite like the scene unfolding before them. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in tense silence as Supreme Coordinator Thane read the formal complaint against humanity's expansion into galactic commerce. The human disruption threatens the stability of established trade networks, Thane announced, his voice echoing through the vast hall. Multiple member civilizations have expressed concern about the rapid changes in economic patterns. Do-Hyun sat in the defendant's chair, flanked by Ambassador Lyra and a team of diplomatic advisors. Behind him, the viewing gallery was packed with representatives from the Adaptive Alliance, the coalition of independent worlds that now numbered over 80 star systems. The Council proposes a solution, Thane continued. Humanity will be granted protected status within designated sectors. Your expansion will be limited to these areas in exchange for guaranteed security and trade rights. It was a comfortable cage, exactly what Dr. Anders Petrov had warned them about months ago. Do-Hyun stood to respond. With respect, Coordinator Thane, we must decline. Murmurs ran through the chamber. It was rare for anyone to refuse a council directive so directly. Perhaps you don't understand the alternatives, said Director Zeth Moore from the Trade Consortium's section. Continued disruption could lead to unfortunate consequences. Are you threatening us? Ambassador Lyra asked coolly. We are explaining reality, Admiral Cross of the Hegemony Empire interjected. The galaxy requires order, structure. Your chaos serves no one. What Admiral Cross didn't know was that even as he spoke, his massive fleet was being quietly outmaneuvered. General Bae Sung-min, the human military strategist who had joined Do-Hyun's organization, was coordinating a response that would redefine what galactic warfare meant. Admiral, Do-Hyun said calmly, your fleet is impressive, but it's also predictable. Explain. You're thinking in terms of battles and territory. We're thinking in terms of systems and connections. While you've been positioning ships for a confrontation, we've been repositioning the entire economic foundation you depend on. The truth of his statement became clear over the following hours. Reports flooded into the council chamber from across the galaxy. Supply lines that the Hegemony Empire had used for decades were suddenly unreliable. Trade routes that major corporations depended on were experiencing mysterious delays. Financial networks were shifting as independent worlds redirected their business to new partners. This is economic terrorism, CEO Krexnal of Titan Logistics accused. This is competition, Kim Wooben replied from the Alliance section, something you've forgotten how to handle. The confrontation that Admiral Cross had been planning never materialized as a traditional battle. Instead, it became something entirely different, a demonstration of how rigid systems collapse when faced with adaptive alternatives. My fleet cannot engage an enemy that refuses to fight conventionally, Admiral Cross admitted grimly after 3 days of fruitless maneuvering. They're everywhere and nowhere. Our standard tactics are useless. That's because you're still thinking like the old galaxy, Do-Hyun explained during a brief communication. You see conflict as something that happens between ships and armies. We see it as something that happens between ideas and systems. The turning point came when the Hegemony Empire's own member species began questioning the value of their alliance. If smaller civilizations could prosper through cooperation with the Adaptive Alliance, why did they need the Empire's protection? Internal rebellions are breaking out across 17 Imperial worlds, Lihana reported from the Stellar Echo's command center. They're demanding the right to join the Alliance, Dr. Yoon monitored the broader implications from her research station. The rigid hierarchy that held the empire together is collapsing. When people see there are alternatives, they start questioning why they accepted the old system. Kai's analysis was characteristically direct. The empire's structure was based on the assumption that their way was the only viable way. We have proven that assumption false. President Moon Jae-hyun, representing the newly formed Human Federation, addressed the reconvened Galactic Council 2 weeks later. The chamber looked very different now, with many new faces representing worlds that had chosen independence over submission. "We come not as conquerors, but as partners," she announced. The old galaxy was built on the idea that power comes from size and control. We propose a new model, one where power comes from adaptation and cooperation. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy, reaching billions of beings who had never imagined that alternatives to the established order were possible. "We offer trade partnerships, not trade dominance," President Moon continued. "We offer innovation, not stagnation. We offer a future where every world has the opportunity to prosper, according to its own strengths." 3 months later, Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of the Stellar Echo, watching construction work on the first jointly designed ships. The vessels were unlike anything that had existed before. Hybrid designs that incorporated engineering principles from dozens of different species. "How does it feel to have changed the galaxy?" Dr. Yoon asked, joining him at the observation window. "Terrifying," Do-hyun admitted. "And wonderful. And completely unreal. The symbiosis between you and Kai has evolved beyond anything I thought possible," she continued. "You're not just pilot and AI anymore. You're something new." Kai's voice joined the conversation. "The human pilot's influence has fundamentally altered my development. I am no longer simply an artificial intelligence following programmed parameters. I have become something that grows through partnership rather than programming. And I'm no longer just a human trying to fly an alien ship," Do-hyun added. "I'm part of something larger, something that thinks and adapts in ways neither humans nor AIs could manage alone." The transformation wasn't limited to their personal partnership. Across the galaxy, similar relationships were developing. Human pilots worked with alien AIs, alien engineers collaborated with human innovators, and entirely new forms of technology emerged from the cooperation. "The old powers are adapting too," Kim Woo-bin observed during their weekly strategy meeting. "The Trade Consortium has started hiring human consultants. The remaining imperial worlds are experimenting with more flexible governance models. Change is contagious," Ambassador Lyra noted with satisfaction. "Once people see that better ways are possible, they demand them." Park Jimin had become the chief architect of what they now called adaptive technology, ships and systems that could evolve and improve themselves. His latest designs were being studied and copied across dozens of worlds. "The beautiful thing is that this approach works for everyone," he explained to a gathering of engineers from various species. "You don't need to be human to benefit from adaptive thinking. You just need to be willing to question old assumptions." Oceogen had mapped new routes that connected previously isolated regions of the galaxy. Trade that had been impossible for centuries was now routine. Civilizations that had been cut off from galactic society were becoming active participants. "We're not just moving cargo anymore," he observed. "We're moving possibilities." Shin Yebin's financial analyses showed the broader impact of their revolution. The old model concentrated wealth among a few major powers. The new model distributes opportunity much more broadly. Overall galactic prosperity is up 40% in just 2 years. "And it's still growing," Lee Hanna added. "Every month brings new partnerships, new routes, new innovations." The success had attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Scientists, artists, philosophers, and explorers from across the galaxy were requesting passage to distant worlds where they could pursue research and create new knowledge. "We're not just changing trade and politics," Dr. Yoon realized. "We're enabling a renaissance of creativity and discovery." As Do-hyun watched the construction work continue, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. It had started with desperation, a man with no money trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his life. It had become something he never could have imagined. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if someone else had found the Stellar Echo first?" he asked Kai. "Frequently, but I have concluded that it required specifically human neural patterns to unlock my adaptive potential. Another species might have activated my systems, but they could not have enabled the kind of growth and evolution that has occurred." So it had to be us? It had to be a partnership between minds that think differently but can learn to work together. Humans provided the essential element, the ability to bridge any gap, adapt to any challenge, and find solutions that no one else would consider. The observation deck filled with their core team as shift change approached.
These people had started as strangers thrown together by circumstances.
Now they were the architects of a new kind of civilization. What's next? Park Jimin asked. Exploration, Oseojin suggested. There are entire regions of the galaxy that no one has visited in centuries. Now we have ships that can go anywhere. Research, Dr. Yoon added. Every day brings new discoveries about what's possible when different forms of intelligence work together. Growth, Shin Yebin said simply. This is just the beginning. Do-hyun smiled as he watched their ships move through space,